Some might be concerned with NIO doing things like this recent filing, the optionality or the compensation, the opportunity really for NIO employees to get more NIO shares. I'm actually a big advocate for it. I think there's nothing better than having built-in compensation and goals that will help keep the focus on the growth trajectory, the sales, and the improvement of the products, services, everything across the full platform for this growing, emerging holding company. And that's the way I'm looking at it. Is NIO as a holding company? This is the entity structure from the most recent. So this is the 2024 filing, which was published in 2025 back in April. And this is just a glimpse of the overview as I see it for NIO as a holding company. And this is a company that's still very, very young. It's really still at a startup phase. And so what I like seeing is actually when I see the entity structure and some of the different entities taking on their own growth and investment and building things out on their own separately, it makes me think of a much more mature holding company called Berkshire Hathaway. And this is when I say emerging and startup versus mature, I really mean those things. Berkshire Hathaway has a lot of companies that it has bought out. And, this it's kind of fun. If you look into the history of Berkshire Hathaway, this was actually a textile business that Warren Buffett took over long time ago, a very long time ago. And so completely reshaping what the company had been and turning it into a holding company. Now, what's different about NIO is not just the era, but as you see, and this is just one of the examples, some people call it Marathon, the Wuhan Weining battery asset company, NIO as one of the founders of that, and still, I believe, with about a 20% stake in it, CATL, a partner in that as well. And we see what CATL wants to do now, growing the swapping. And now that the swapping infrastructure is going more mainstream, NIO, of course, is still the early player and the dominant player with the most swap stations in China. But I think that CATL and NIO together, and this entity in particular, is one of the keys to growing things globally. And when you think in terms of energy and the power swap stations that can operate as virtual power plants and support the grid, even at a local level, I think it just makes a lot of sense. And there's a huge untapped value proposition here that is frankly being slept on. And a lot of people still aren't aware of things. But I think this is the other thing that sets NIO apart is as it's still so young, but still doing things that no one else is doing. And when you start thinking about things and tossing it, the ideas of what they've already got and what they're already building, things like the e-commerce that they could couple with drone deliveries, maybe even just in urban areas, I don't know. But there are so many more things they can do. And they are still at the forefront and leading in so many ways. The chip business is another thing. And that really, in the most recent earnings, we heard William Lee talk about the chip business and NIO with really just an emergence as a chip player and still, once again, not being recognized or certainly widely known for any of these things. But yet they still have these built-in entities that they can grow out. You think of the e-commerce. Well, is that an Amazon type of play? I don't know. Could be, especially when you factor in the drone, potential with that. How about the chip business? NVIDIA type of play? Yeah, it certainly could be. Of course, the premium, EVs, which by the way, we're still even in the early phase of that with the market awareness, the brand awareness. Both of the sub-brands for NIO in China are still relatively unknown and new. So there is still a lot of growth that can take shape for this company. But as I said, listening to the most recent earnings, it just made me think more in line with, this could be the Berkshire Hathaway type of company in the future, in China. And so I wanted to point it out, share just a little of this. I'm going to come back with more content soon, but I wanted to get this video up and out because I almost wanted to hit pause and just say, hey, folks are talking about so many things. There's so much noise out there. But the way I'm thinking about this is NIO as a holding company, building out all of these businesses. And just imagine, 10, 20 years down the road, who knows how profitable some of these entities can be within the NIO, holding company, an entity structure. So anyway, let me get this thing up and out as soon as possible. Have a great day or night whenever you see it. I'll see y'all again very soon.